Okay, so what if everything you thought you knew about happiness was actually leading you down a path to just endless craving? A kind of relentless pursuit that never quite delivers that lasting peace you're truly seeking. I mean, we are constantly bombarded with these messages, right? Chase the next big thing, achieve the next milestone, always hoping that, some ephemeral buzz will finally bring lasting joy. But that thrill, that fleeting high, it too often just fades, leaving us wanting more, always wanting the next version of everything.
It's a really powerful way to put it. For millennia, ancient wisdom traditions have consistently pointed towards something deeper, something far more sustainable than just happiness. They've described it as the true bedrock of well-being, like an internal anchor. And what's really fascinating, modern psychology, with all its scientific rigor, is now basically rediscovering and actively validating the profound importance of this very state.
And that, for you listening, is exactly what this deep dive is all about, uncovering that profound, often misunderstood emotion. We're not just talking about fleeting happiness, that kind of emotional sugar rush. We're talking about a quiet, powerful contentment, a steady hum that can truly anchor you amidst all of life's inevitable chaos. So, yeah. Let's unearth its secrets. Okay, let's unpack this common dilemma we all face. We're constantly on this quest, aren't we? Buying the latest gadget, chasing the next career goal, planning that dream vacation, only to find the thrill is remarkably short-lived. We get that dopamine hit and then it's gone, leaving us feeling like we're caught in this endless loop, always striving, never quite arriving. Why do you think that is?
Well, what you're describing, it perfectly illustrates this concept of the hedonic treadmill. The original theory, which gained quite a bit of traction, basically said that good and bad events in our lives, they only temporarily impact our happiness. After that initial spike or dip, we quickly adapt. We return to a baseline level of happiness. And the rather bleak implication back then was that any efforts, individual or societal, to increase happiness were essentially, doomed to failure, because our internal sort of happiness thermostat would always reset itself. Imagine running really hard on a treadmill, right? Expending enormous energy, only to find yourself exactly where you started.
That feels so incredibly relatable, doesn't it? That new car, that promotion you worked so hard for, that incredible vacation. For a moment, it's just pure joy. But then, like you said, it just becomes the new normal. The shine wears off, and suddenly you're already looking for the next thing to give you that boost. It really brings to mind Oscar Wilde's observation. True contentment is not having everything, but in being satisfied with everything you have. It's such a simple shift, but really profound.
It truly is. And that's the crucial distinction we need to make between happiness and contentment. Happiness, often a fleeting high, right? A reaction to external events or positive stuff, is an outcome. Contentment, though, is much deeper, more pervasive. I often describe it as a gentle hum of satisfaction, maybe a sustainable path to life satisfaction. It's less about a moment of exhilaration, more about a cognitive assessment of your life. As a whole, it's a serene acceptance, a peaceful appreciation of your current circumstances, even when they're not perfect. And it's so vital to understand this isn't complacency. It's not about giving up or settling. Not at all. Instead, it's an active acknowledgement of sufficiency, both materially and spiritually. It's saying, I am enough, and what I have is enough, right here, right now.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting for me. This shift in perspective you're highlighting. It feels truly profound. It moves us away from what I guess I'd call the more strategy, that relentless pursuit of more money, more power, more stuff, more validation, and towards something fundamentally different, something like an enough strategy. You hinted at why the more strategy is unsustainable. Can you maybe elaborate on the hidden costs of always chasing that ever-moving target?
Absolutely. The more strategy is a trap because, it's a game without an end. Think about it. If your happiness always depends on the next thing, you're always living in this state of future conditional well-being. It hasn't happened yet. And this costs us just an immense amount of time, energy, mental resources. We're constantly sacrificing our present peace for some future state that honestly, once it arrives, often doesn't deliver the promised satisfaction for very long. It fuels comparison, anxiety, a sense of never quite measuring up. It's exhausting. Ultimately, it's depleting. The enough strategy, on the other hand, is about shifting your internal framework. So your baseline well-being isn't dependent on accumulating external stuff. It's about building that sense of internal wholeness now. And if we zoom out a bit, connect this to the bigger historical cultural picture, ancient wisdom traditions going back thousands of years that very rarely even use the word happiness like we do today when they talked about well-being. Over 90% of the time, they actually spoke of contentment, often describing it as a state of unconditional wholeness. My research team once worked with this remote group of former nomads in the Himalayas of eastern Bhutan. And when we asked our guide to translate the word contentment, he offered chakshe, which literally translates to the knowledge of enough. It implies that right here, right now, everything is perfect as it is. Regardless of external circumstances, it's a deep inner knowing.
The knowledge of enough. Wow. That phrase just resonates so deeply, doesn't it? It immediately challenges our modern assumptions about what a good life even means.
It really does. And when you trace the etymology, the history of the word contentment itself, it comes from the Latin contentus, which means held together or intact, whole. Originally, it was used for physical things like a cup or a barrel that was full, but over time it evolved to describe a person who feels, complete, with no desires beyond themselves. This is a profoundly introspective idea. It really asks you to consider, how whole do you feel inside right now? How complete are you as a human being, just as you are? It invites this kind of radical self-inquiry.
That's such a radical difference from most other emotions we feel. Unlike joy or sadness or anger, which often react to external input, something good happens, something bad happens. Contentment seems to require no external input at all. It's sourced entirely from within, which offers incredible power, incredible stability. Think about a Formula One driver maintaining that incredible calm and focus at 180 miles per hour. Not because nothing chaotic is happening, obviously, but because their internal state is so held together. Or imagine feeling a sense of wholeness and peace around a totally chaotic dinner table, kids fighting, food flying. Contentment isn't just about your reaction to what's happening, it's about your relationship to it. It's that deep internal sense that I am okay, regardless of what the external world is throwing at you. So if ancient wisdom points to this internal self-sourced contentment, and we've talked about the, frankly, frustrating reality of the hedonic treadmill, what does all this mean for our actual ability to change our well-being, scientifically speaking? Does the hedonic treadmill still mean we're fundamentally stuck with our current happiness baseline? Or is there, a genuine scientific glimmer of hope here?
Oh, not at all. This is where the science gets truly exciting, really. Recent empirical work has brought 5 crucial revisions to that old hedonic treadmill theory, and they offer significant hope, demonstrating our agency. First, individuals' happiness set points are not hedonically neutral. They actually tend to lean either positively or negatively, partly based on our innate disposition. Second, people have different set points, influenced partly by temperament, genetics. We're not all starting from the exact same internal baseline, Third, a single person can actually have multiple happiness set points. For instance, your pleasant emotions, unpleasant emotions, overall life satisfaction. They can move in different directions. You might be going through a tough time, but still feel satisfied with your life's general direction. Fourth, and this is perhaps the most important bit, well-being set points can change under certain conditions. This is the real game changer. It means your baseline can shift, not just temporarily, but fundamentally. And finally, fifth, individuals differ in how they adapt to events. Some people truly change their set point after something big, like a profound loss or a major life transformation. Others don't adapt in quite the same way.
Wow. Okay, that's more than just a glimmer of hope. That sounds like a scientific blueprint for intentional change.
Yeah.
These revisions really dismantle that old deterministic view. It means we are not just passive passengers on this hedonic treadmill. We actually have the potential to, recalibrate it, to intentionally move our internal happy dial to a new, higher, maybe more stable setting. That changes everything about how we approach personal growth. It validates the whole pursuit of deeper, more stable well-being. Our efforts really aren't doomed after all.
And speaking of moments where we kind of transcend our typical emotional states and find deep satisfaction, there's another fascinating psychological concept. It ties directly into this idea of internal well-being. You've often spoken about flow. Could you tell us more about that? And how does it connect to cultivating contentment?
Flow. Yes. As famously described by the psychologist Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi, flow is this mental state of just, energized focus, full involvement, and real enjoyment in the process of an activity. It's that feeling when you're so utterly absorbed in something that hours feel like minutes. You completely lose all sense of self. Csikszentmihalyi first observed this in artists, actually. People who would become so deeply immersed in their work, painting, sculpting, composing, that they literally disregard basic needs. Food, water, sleep. They were just fully present, fully engaged. He described it as the melting together of action and consciousness. A state where you find this perfect balance between your skill level and the challenge of the task. All your mental energy is just directed right there, leaving no room for distractions or that internal chatter. And there are 6 key components that usually characterize the flow state. First, intense, focused concentration on the present moment. Second, a merging of action and awareness. You're not thinking about doing it. You're just doing it. Third, you lose that reflective self-consciousness. You're not worried about how you look or what others think. Fourth, a strong sense of personal control over what you're doing. Fifth, a distortion of time. It flies by or stands still. And finally, the activity itself is intrinsically rewarding. You do it for the sheer joy of it, not for some external prize. When these line up, you're in flow.
And this state of flow, it's directly linked to profound satisfaction, isn't it? It's often described as the optimal experience, leading to high gratification and significantly overall life satisfaction. This isn't just about doing a task well, it sounds like it transforms your very experience of life while you're doing it. So what conditions foster it? How can we invite more flow into our lives?
Exactly. And the conditions are actually quite clear. You need clear goals, so you know what you're aiming for. You need immediate feedback so you can adjust as you go. And crucially, a balance between opportunity and capacity. That perfect sweet spot where the challenge is just slightly above your current skill level. It pushes you, stretches you, but doesn't overwhelm you. Think of a musician mastering a tricky new piece, or a programmer deep in solving a complex bug, or even someone totally absorbed in a challenging sport they love. When you find these zones, you're not just doing something, you're fully alive. And that is just inherently satisfying. So if we connect all these profound insights from ancient wisdom, modern psychology, those hedonic treadmill revisions, the power of flow, how do we actually weave them into our daily lives? How do we cultivate this deep, quiet contentment? It doesn't have to be complicated. And the good news is these strategies are pretty simple. They're scientifically evidenced, and they really require no fancy equipment or grand gestures. They're mostly about subtle shifts in perspective and consistent small actions.
Right, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? Knowing is one thing, but doing is another. So what are some actual steps for us, for you listening right now, to start building that internal hum of contentment?
Okay, first up, gratitude. It's incredibly powerful. It just shifts your focus from what's lacking to what's already abundant in your life. Concrete practices. Keep a gratitude journal. Each day, maybe before bed, just jot down 3 things you're genuinely thankful for. They don't have to be huge things. It could be a warm cup of coffee, a kind word from someone, the comfort of your home, simple stuff. You can also just take intentional moments during the day. Pause. Reflect on things you're grateful for. Really savor them. And don't underestimate expressing gratitude directly to others. Verbally, or maybe a quick note, it reinforces the feeling in you and strengthens connections. It's a win-win. Second thing, acceptance. This involves really contemplating the impermanence of challenges, understanding that difficult emotions, tough circumstances, they will pass. It's about learning to focus your energy on what you can change while serenely accepting what you simply cannot. This lines up really well with Stoic philosophy, differentiating between what's in our control and what isn't. It's accepting fate, but not with resignation. It's with a clear mind, finding a constructive response to whatever situation you're in, no matter how difficult. It's about working with reality, not fighting it constantly.
Okay, so acknowledging reality without being defeated by it. Finding agency even within constraints makes sense. What else can we actively practice?
Third, self-compassion. This is fundamentally about changing that inner dialogue, that harsh, critical voice many of us have. Practice replacing that negative self-talk with kinder, more supportive messages. Basically, treat yourself with the same understanding and patience you'd offer a dear friend who's struggling. Establish some self-care rituals that genuinely nurture you: reading, nature, a calming hobby. And crucially, learn to forgive yourself for past mistakes. See them not as definitive failures, but as part of your unique growth journey. Lessons learned. That releases such a heavy burden of regret. And fourth, hobbies. But not just any old hobbies. Focus on ones that involve developing a skill, maybe creative expression like painting, music, learning a language. Also, prioritize hobbies that might involve community engagement, connecting you with like-minded people. These types of activities, they boost self-esteem, relieve stress like nobody's business, and they also naturally lend themselves to those wonderful flow experiences we just talked about. When you're absorbed in creating or learning, time just melts away, and you experience that deep, effortless satisfaction.
This brings up an important point as we talk about cultivating these internal states. How does a practice like mindfulness fit into this whole quest for contentment? And what about those often hidden expectations we place on ourselves for our own well-being?
Right. Mindfulness is really a core practice for cultivating contentment. Why? Because it trains your attention, trains it to focus on the present moment without judgment. It's kind of like learning to calm the churning waters of your mind, helping you weather what I sometimes call the manic cyclone of the mind, all those racing thoughts, worries, plans. As you practice mindfulness, even for short periods, start to notice that subtle feeling of contentment that often arises. Your body feels more relaxed, your mind gets calmer. There's this gentle, pervasive sense that everything is a little bit more okay right now, simply as it is. It's about recognizing that inherent sense of okayness that actually exists within you, often just buried beneath layers and layers of striving. And then there's this idea of well-being contingencies. These are the external factors we often unconsciously believe are required for us to feel complete or okay. Things like, when I have X amount in the bank, then I'll be happy. Or when I achieve X at work, then I'll finally feel good. Or when I lose X pounds, then I'll feel good enough. These unhealthy attachments create dependencies, often on things outside our immediate control. And they tragically prevent us from feeling okay right now, in this very moment. They constantly push contentment off into some hypothetical future.
That's a really profound realization, that we're constantly pushing our sense of wholeness into the future based on conditions that may or may not ever happen. It sounds like a constant deferral of our own peace. I really encourage you, listening, to take some time, reflect on this, maybe even map out your own well-being contingencies. What are those unspoken conditions you place on your own sense of contentment? And then critically, decide which ones truly serve your deeper values and which ones might you want to consciously try to release, thereby taking ownership of your well-being right here in the present.
Exactly. And underlying all of this, the real bedrock of contentment is what we might call the radical appreciation of all life's experiences.
Yeah.
It's about allowing all emotions, sadness, anger, shame, joy, elation, to come and go without needing to fix them, change them, without judging them as good or bad. It's an unconditional acceptance of what it means to be human in all its messy, beautiful entirety. When you stop fighting your internal experience and just allow it to be, that quiet hum of contentment, that sense of enoughness, becomes your steady companion.
So just to briefly recap our deep dive today, we've explored this really profound journey, haven't we? Moving beyond the fleeting, often exhausting chase for happiness to embrace the deep, powerful, and truly sustainable state of contentment.
And we've seen how these transformative insights, from the revisions to the hedonic treadmill, the power of flow, and the deliberate daily cultivation of practices like gratitude, acceptance, self-compassion, mindfulness, how they can fundamentally shift your entire experience of life, transforming it from that constant yearning for more to a deep appreciation for enough. Remember, contentment isn't passive resignation. It's not just sitting back. It's a dynamic act of appreciation for what already exists within you and around you. It's really the ultimate inner anchor against life's inevitable challenges. It transforms your personal narrative from one of endless striving and yearning to one of profound, authentic appreciation.
So here's a final thought for you to mull over. What if your greatest mission in life wasn't to accumulate more or conquer more or achieve more, but to fully embrace the profound, often overlooked power of just enough? What would your life truly feel like if you prioritize cultivating that deep inner sense of wholeness and sufficiency, regardless of whatever external circumstances come your way? Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into the emotion of satisfaction. Until next time, keep exploring, keep growing, and find your own quiet, powerful hum of contentment.